people generally tend to look at entrepreneur as someone who is not in job, but I relate it more to an attitude. You can be at a job and still an entrepreneur. You can be doing your own business and still be an entrepreneur. So it's I studied in Pune, so went to Air Force School, then went to Vadias, which is one of the popular colleges here in the city. Took up commerce by choice. So even despite having very good numbers, I decided that I wanted to do something. Most of the family members are doctors by profession, so they wanted someone who can handle money. So I said, let's pick up this profession. This as a career choice, an academic choice, and then probably a career choice also. After doing my master's here, went on to do my second master's in US. So I did my master's in finance. And today I see a lot of people speaking about not choosing MBA, as to how MBA has become a very common program. And this decision I had taken almost about 12 years plus 13 years. So I decided I don't want to do MBA. I will specialize in my program, which is Masters in Finance, and not do MBA. So that was by choice. Again, a very unique choice in itself, and people would always ask. Got selected in Boeing as a procurement cost analyst, but as you know, H1 was an issue. So decided that if visa could be an issue, it could come between my working experience and my commitment and my conviction and my hard work, I would rather return to my motherland.
To my home country.
Picked up some readily available odd jobs, because when I came back, it was the mid of financial crisis. And we have just seen, this was 2009, and we've just seen sort of a crisis. So I can, into 2020, so I can see that I'm someone who's seen two crises, financial and the aftermath of it. One was probably a health crisis, a pandemic, but I think there are also other crises that were related to pandemic. So that way I've added two crises to my experience and turned entrepreneurs after my first job. Once I came back, I was already working in India before I went to the US. After I came back here, picked up whatever was readily available to help myself survive, and then turned entrepreneur again, because I think that's the crux of it. People generally tend to look at entrepreneur as someone who is not in job, but I relate it more to an attitude. You can be at a job and still an entrepreneur. You can be doing your own business and still be an entrepreneur. So it's all about the attitude. So between jobs and consulting assignments, so later on moved to become an investment banker with a boutique firm. And I'm fortunate that we dealt with some of the billion-dollar companies which are located here and globally also, and sort of trying to help them look for certain opportunities, acquire smaller companies in India. That way, my boss would always say that, and we were a very small firm in that sense. However, the conviction in myself, I said, no, I don't want to look at smaller players. I want to talk to people who are really big. And some of the multinational names that we spoke and we did transactions. So it was satisfactory in that way. I realized, after being in multiple assignments and roles, and there's a very famous ad from Amir Khan. It says, what role are you playing today? It was a Toyota ad, and that is some question that I always ask myself. I realized that all these, the transition that I was seeing, the journey from entrepreneur to job and probably back to entrepreneur, there's one thing that was common for probably last 20 years, and that was teaching. So I had been a visiting faculty at various colleges throughout my life. And I sensed an opportunity in this, especially during the COVID period. I saw that people get trapped in stock markets. And there is absolutely an opportunity in terms of saving people, teaching them and saving their investments If I could teach them, say, some data points that will save their investments, I'll be doing a great service to them and to the nation also. And that is how PFA Institute, which stands for Practical Financial Analyst Institute, started. And that's the journey. You'll be happy to know that just in pandemic, over a period of, as I said, 10 years, I would have taught about 1,000 students in various MBA schools, etc. But just in pandemic, we trained about 100 people. So much money saved. And Symbiosis liked the program so much that they accepted this under skill development. And there are other entities, other universities, deemed colleges that we're talking to probably who could also launch this. I would not name right now, but one of the largest financial gateway that I am engaged in could possibly launch this program. What I have done differently is I have put all my consulting experience, all my struggle. Now, one question that you would want to people generally ask, and let me just elaborate a couple of moments on it before we move on to the second question.
Yes.
So my first, when I came back to US, the entrepreneurship after my job that I took up when I started my own company, and I had to sell it. So I did a transaction. I did not make a loss in it, but I sold my company.
Okay.
People always ask what was the learning in it.
Yeah.
I said, collection was the biggest learning. What do I mean by collection? Money collection. That is something that they don't teach in the books, in the MBA books, etc. That collecting money in India and probably elsewhere also is a big challenge. Once you have given credit, it becomes a challenge. So all the 10 years of consulting experience I've put into this program, which is very unique in itself. And you'll be surprised that we follow a very simple language structure. So we're not teaching people to do PhD in my program. There are farmers' son, and at the same time, there are people who are like ex-CEOs, directors, present directors, project managers of IT companies, of consulting companies, attending the same batch. It's a very unique program. And we do that in the evening from 8:30 to 10:30. So it's 10:30 in the night. The person who has his very difficult schedule, in the sense he has got back-to-back multiple meetings, and after that, finishing off that, he's still attending. So there's some value that we added, and so that's the whole journey. So since you mentioned investment banking, put my investment banking perspective into a teaching program, which has liked by one of the colleges here, which is Symbiosis. As I said, it is one of the most reputed colleges. So that's about the journey.
Yeah, that's an excellent journey. And if a farmer sir and the ex-CEO or a CEO, they are both able to come on a table and study together, you have made this program so simple. It's wonderful to know that even a common man can understand your program and can learn about investment banking. So how easy or difficult was it to switch from entrepreneurship to job, or job to entrepreneurship? Were there some challenges that you faced when you were switching your roles like this?
The challenges are certainly there, because without challenges, you'll not have a rebirth sort of in that sense, because you're switching from one profile to the other. So challenges definitely are there, but I think it's more in the head. And as I was just sort of trying to explain it to you backstage, that when you're shutting your business, the customers who you have sold your product, they know that they'll not be getting the next consignment from you. So they purposely try to delay your payment. So that's the behavioral nature, or that is how the business environment works, where the collection or the money that you want to collect gets delayed. So that's certainly a challenge. And but however, I think you are better as an employee, better as a person when you have some business experience. When you go from a business environment and switch to a job, I think you don't have people chasing you. You know that if you've taken ownership or responsibility, that is something that you need to deliver, and you don't have managers sitting at your head. Even the manager appreciates the fact that you are a little different in the sense that you take up ownership, etc., and complete it on time or whatever. So the approach, even the communication between the manager and the subordinate, I think in this case is a little different. So Yes, challenges certainly, because you have to shut down your business, collect the money, and also prepare or get into a new job. Sometimes you have to do the transition simultaneously. So I would do this consulting job from Monday to Friday, and Saturday and Sundays I would go for money collection. So it's certainly not that easy, but I think it's all in the head. And as I was saying you off stage, I was speaking to a CEO of a large fintech company, and he said, it's all about the attitude. And they specifically look for people who have had failed startups, because they have at least tried something. In my case, it was not a failed startup. I decided to sell on my own, recovered my money. I decided to sell because collection was becoming an issue, and it was becoming an ever capital sucking business, which was not possible to sustain. So I sold my brand, made some money on that. But I think the point here is, one is the conviction. If it's in your head, you can do it. And I think you are better as a human, better as an employee, better as a person, if you've gone through these tough times. So yes, challenges, yes, but I think one can sail through.
Right. This is a very good advice that you have given to the young entrepreneurs who will be watching you and who will be listening to you. Now, this is you talked mainly about this when you were, shutting down your first business and then coming to job, right? What happened when you were, leaving your job, quitting your job, which was giving you a fixed salary, being the male in the family, earning the bread and butter of the family, and then starting another journey? What were the challenges that you faced at that time?
The transition between the first job and the next business. So there was job and there was business and there was job. The biggest change that was there was a family, right?
Yes, this time you had a family.
Yes. So I was not bachelor. I was not alone. There was a family for who I was responsible, and I'm still responsible. It's a different challenge. It's a totally a different challenge. There's more of societal pressure in that sense. But I think if you have someone as a backup, if your better half is a good backup, comes as a backup and supports your decision, I think that's where things become easier for you. So that journey, I think, is far more difficult because you have, as you said, you have a fixed salary, and then you are then you are in the open, funding for projects.
Hi, this is Sandeep, currently working as senior consultant for ITC Group. Been a part of Pfa Institute from last 2+ months. I must say that I'm really happy with the course and the content. The way he is covering technical analysis as well as the fundamental analysis had helped me in a big way. The good thing is that now I look into my portfolio with a whole new lenses on. Thanks to Puratan and the Pfa Institute.
It's funding for yourself. I think it's a different challenge altogether. But by this time, I think you have matured enough to do what you want to do. And I think it's all about the passion that we're talking about here. Because another span of about 7-8 years, you've gathered enough experience, you have seen enough challenges, and you know how to manage these challenges. Communication is the biggest part of all these challenges. So if communication is correct, whether it is to your family, whether it is to your wife, or whether it is to the society or to the entrepreneurs or to your previous employer, you have to master the art of communication. Without communication, I don't think one could really be successful in that sense. So communication has to be there, because you have to always communicate either through the body language or through the words that you speak. You always have to communicate. And I think that's the art you have to master. Even in challenges when, in fact, there's always a fight going inside, right? So an entrepreneur is always fighting against time and a lot of challenges.
Yes, there is a communication with yourself as well, right? Which goes on within you.
Yes, right. And that is very different from what you communicate to the outside world. So you have to master the art of communication. And I think if you've done that, a lot of challenges are sorted. And if you are following your passion. So as I, again, backstage, we spoke about it. So I sat down and I said, what is that common thing which I've been doing for the past 10 years? Because people sort of accuse you of switching between jobs and businesses, say that you're confused, you don't know what to do. You have started, then you gone bankrupt, then you started and done something, good salary, etc., etc. So that is the time for retrospection, when you think, and then you start thinking, what is that common thing? What is that skill that you can bring to the table that could possibly make a difference when you speak to the world? And I think I have been a good tutor. I've been a good, I am someone who can read it and explain it to you well, but not in a textbook language. I don't need presentations. I don't use presentations in my classes. Just the initial, for kids, yes, maybe, or it is just 1 or 2 classes where I use presentations, and then it is more of an applied science that I show. And it's more of an experience-based. If I can prove that on, say, the charts, the technical tools that we teach, then I'm not teaching you textbook. I'm not helping you in doing PhD, but I'm certainly teaching you something which is an applied science, which is more of a skill. And so that is one thing I realized, that this is, I think, probably I am best at it, because I can look at a problem, I can relate to that problem in an academic way. So I can tell you what you studied in 11th standard and how that chapter of economics is important for what you are seeing here in the stock markets. And I think that's the skill. So I learned my skill, that I realized my skills, that I got a certain skill. And so the message for the students and entrepreneurs here, of whatever whatever age they are, because I'm sure this video will be watched by people who come from different ages. So there could be students who are in their teens, and there could be entrepreneurs who are in their late 40s and still trying to become an entrepreneur.
Yes.
The idea is, if you know what's the skill set that you can bring on the table, which is little difficult to replicate. For example, there were 11 policy bazaars, in the sense, not policy bazaars as such, but there were similar businesses as Policy Bazaar about 10 years ago. And the only name that you remember today
is
Policy
Bazaar. Correct.
Is Policy. So it's the conviction of the founder, right, Mr. Daya, to continue with his passion. So likewise, if you're passionate, if you know, any CEO, any successful person you speak to, they will say, know yourself. To answer your question, the transition between job and entrepreneurship, one thing that I realized, that I have known myself better.
Right.
And if that journey is complete, I think you can pick up, if you know yourself, and if you know if you know yourself, obviously you know what you can do. And if you've known that, despite multiple failures, you could possibly have success again at your doorstep.
Correct. That's very nice and so beautifully explained. My next question was, how did you come up with this idea of starting a Pfa Institute? But you have already answered it, because you first looked at what are the things or skills you are good at, and you found that teaching is the core of it, and you picked it up for your next journey. That was very beautifully explained, very simplistic. You have explained in a very simple language, and therefore I can understand how simply, with how simplicity you teach this all in your course, in your institute. And that's a skill that someone can use it and utilize it in their daily life, right, and make money out of it.
Absolutely. We've make money, help them make good decisions, and save them from losses, because there are so many traps in the stock markets, and you have every WhatsApp group and every Telegram group has people sending stock tips. In fact, we are probably one of the only group where we don't send any stock tips. We are actually asking people to become Atmanirbhar, get trained, and get into the discussion, the evening briefing that we do for 2 hours, get into a discussion format with us. And help choose your own stock. Don't be dependent on anyone. So we don't rely on media channels. We analyze a lot of news, but we don't depend on anyone. In fact, I ask them, don't be dependent on me as well. So in that
because
sense,
you're making them Atmanirbhar, right? That's excellent.
That's key. Yeah. And Atmanirbhar could be self-reliant for someone. So it's not an advertisement or a punchline. It's actually, the fact is, you want to become self-reliant.
Yes.
And in fact, the domain that you specialize, for example, you come from a tech domain, right? So you can learn to pick up stocks from tech domain. You don't need to learn about automotive, right? If you can pick up one stock, say if you can pick up Tech Mahindra at a right price, even in a span of say 10 years, something like COVID, and you'll see that all these IT companies are trading at a discount. And if you make that one right decision in a lifetime, you are at least 30, 40 or 100% in terms of profits. So you need to specialize in your domain. Domain is something that is, again, the part of the problem, I think, or problem statement is know yourself.
Correct. And
for example, I have been consulting. So I decided to choose my domain.
Yes.
So I asked myself, which domain should I specialize on? Because I come from a commerce background. I'm not an engineer.
Right.
But today I work with R&D engineers also on certain projects. So I looked at the map of Pune and I said, okay, 4 hours from here, which is the industry? And it's all automotive.
Yes. Correct.
So I said, okay, whether I have to do consulting, whether it is merger or acquisition, whether I have to do market research, it is going to be automotive. That is something that will support my business and my consulting work and my job, etc., etc. And I am a consultant in the automotive. So I have automotive experience and I help in, I have a consulting experience also. So I do some consulting assignments also. The point is that when you talk about Hero and Maruti Suzuki, etc., I can talk about that stock at length because I understand that industry.
Correct.
So again, the point is know yourself.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. And that was a very intelligent decision. Again, knowing yourself, your surroundings, what is available around you, and how can you, impact it, or how can that be a part of your business? How can you modify your strategy so that it benefits both the parties, right? Excellent. Very nice. What do you think are the biggest challenges for a small or medium-sized business or entrepreneur?
I think one, maybe the conviction in the business itself. So if you started a business for the sake of doing it, I think, or you have been pushed into it for some reason because you did not want to be an employee, per se. However, you are an employee. I think you are an employee and an entrepreneur at the same time. It's that there's a very thin line, and it doesn't exist anymore, as I explained earlier in the discussion that we have been having the last 30 minutes. It's all in the conviction. And I think the biggest problem is that if you realize that you are not in the right business. For example, if I would have realized that this Pfa Institute is not working out, I should not be afraid of, I should not even think twice in shutting the business. It's not a taboo anymore to shut down your business. There are tons of funding available, so, and I think we've been hearing the leaders that next age, the next 10 years or a decade or so belongs to startups. So you'll see more of funding being available to you if you're solving a real problem. If you're not solving a real problem, it will become difficult for you to exist. For example, in my case, I am solving a real problem where people do not find genuine people who can actually teach you and say, okay, now you have learned to walk, so you must run on your own. I am always there. You can always come back to me and ask questions. Policy Bazaar is solving a real problem, right? You have these tons of advisors who you don't know whether to trust or not, and there is a commission structure which you don't want to sort of get involved into. Paytm for that matter, or Bharat Pay for that matter, or any other fintech company. If you're not solving a real problem, I think that's the real problem with your business in itself. If it's a Me Too business, if you're just saying for the sake of doing it, the many startups, and I think you see on Shark Tank also, the people who come just for valuation's sake, 100 crores, 200 crores, even without realizing the potential of the business, without doing a market survey, market research. And that is what investors do not like, all these private big guys and VCs. So connecting the thread, picking up the thread from what I said is knowing yourself. So if you realize that you're not in the right business, or you picked up a business which is not, or an idea which is not solving the real problem, you should not be afraid of shutting down the business. And that is the biggest problem that any entrepreneur faces. Log kya kahenge?
We think about it a lot, Log kya kahenge?
We think about it, yes. And everything falls in place. You'll have funding. The people have already started approaching me for investments, etc. That let's do this. I'll give you the infrastructure. I'll give you money. So taking the decision at what time to sort of allow investors in, that's also a difficult decision, a very, very difficult decision. So choosing the right funding partner. If you choose partner for money, I think it's again the fall of your empire. So you have to choose partner that you can gel with. So if you have an idea, if you're really working hard, if you're doing good, people will approach you, say, look, your business seems to be good, your idea is good, we want to invest in. So one, choosing the right partner, choosing the right funding partner. It's a very difficult task, and I think you should delay it to the point as much as you can delay it. And second is shutting down the business if you are really not confident about the business doing well, even after putting a couple of years into it. Because then you are befooling yourself, you're lying to yourself.
Right.
So these are very different aspects. Yeah. So these are very different aspects of what challenges and entrepreneurs, especially from the can face, and especially from the MSME segment. It's not working out for you. Let's
close it
quit.
down.
Let's
Shut it down. Yeah. Great. Is there anything else that you would like to say to the Soil Cup team or to the audience of the Soil Cup team?
First of all, obviously, I'm very thankful to Soil Cup because one, that I like your name, Soil Cup. It's very interesting. So I would definitely want to learn more about as to why this name, but it's pretty interesting. And I think one part of and as I said, as I said, I'm just trying to connect the dots and picking up the thread. Communication is very important. The name, the brand, the logos that you choose says a lot about you, about your personality. The dress that you wear, the profession you are in, right? The business that you picked up, the startup idea that you picked up, the logo that you have, the punchline you have. For us, it is trade rich. Yes. So for us, it is trade rich and trade safe.
Nice.
Right? And if you look at my logo, so we have got these 3 owls, which are considered Vahanas of Ma Lakshmi. And it has got stock charts beneath those 3 owls.
Oh. Wow.
And it says trade rich and trade safe, right? So you need to pick up trades which are rich in its sense. So it's a value investing that I'm talking about. And you need to be safe in the market because there are vultures in the market who can just take away your money. They'll just pounce upon. So I think another message, and I like the name Soil Cup. I mean, I would definitely want to learn more about it as to why you call it Soil Cup. But the brand that you have, the name that you've chosen, it's all about branding. It's all about communication. And I think with time, you can improve upon that. And you should spend a lot of time on communication part of it. You just cannot leave it to someone else. So you need to choose the right digital marketing partner. So you certainly need a digital marketing partner, and we understand Soil Cup is also a digital marketing partner. And you have to work with them. So you cannot say that, look, there's this idea, can you just market it digitally? You have to work hand in gloves with them. So, right, you have to walk hand in hand with them. That's an important part of the journey with all your stakeholders, and not just with the digital marketing partner, but with all your stakeholders. The communication has to be very right. I think that's the biggest success mantra that I believe, the way you communicate. And large companies just go down the drain because communication.
There is a gap in communication.
There's a gap.
Correct. Yes.
And for a startup, it's more of an uphill task because you're building the brand from scratch. So what logo to choose? It's not an easy task, right?
It's not.
What punchline to have?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very true.
What to say, what not to say, what to wear, what not to wear. and a lot of things. Yes.
Correct. Great. So thank you once again for your time and for sharing these beautiful lines and beautiful advice to all the people who are listening to you. Thank you once again.
Thank you.